Okay, looks like everybody's pretty much situated and seated. I want to thank all of you for coming and supporting our efforts to this important community meeting. Our purpose for this meeting is to inform and educate the public about the carbon capture sequestration, CCS industry, and its damaging consequences to our land, our water, and our future. We want to thank South Beauregard Recreation Center for allowing us the opportunity to host our meeting in this fine facility. And I want to thank all the volunteers who have helped us put this together. Before we begin, I'm just going to, as a reminder, please silence your cell phones. I want you to know that the restrooms are through this hall if any of you need, and there's some restrooms in the foyer. We also have coffee available. If you'd like some coffee, you can help yourself to coffee. Now, if everybody would please stand as Mr. Gary Musgrove is going to open us in prayer, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you join me in prayer. Heavenly Lord Father, we humble ourselves before your throne. We thank you, Father, for the day that you have blessed us with. We thank you for this beautiful weather, Father, and we give you thanks for the rain that's going to come and nourish our lands. Lord, tonight we gather as a people who are concerned about this land, our property and our rights that you have so graciously blessed us with. Father, we come from all walks of life, from different parties and beliefs, but we are united tonight under your lordship, and we ask for your grace and mercy and blessings upon this meeting. So Lord, I pray for the safety, I pray for the health and the goodwill of everyone listening. I pray for safe travels back home. Lord, we love you and we thank you. In Christ's name I pray, amen. If you'd join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'm sorry. I had a little bit of change of plans, okay? As a wife of a valiant Vietnam veteran, I hold patriotism very dear to my heart. Now, in recent years, I've witnessed a decline in the way that we're being led to pledge allegiance. And so, when I was in school, we were always called to attention, then we were told to salute, then we all began to pledge the allegiance in unity. So, we're going to try to do things the old school way tonight, okay? All right with that? So, attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. As most of you know, our special guest speaker this evening is Lieutenant General Russel Honore. He is a retired U.S. Army officer, best known as the Category 5 General, for leading the military relief effort after Hurricane Katrina. A 37-year veteran, he commanded Joint Task Force Katrina, and after retiring, he became a prominent advocate for disaster preparedness and environmental issues. Bachelor of Science from Southern University and A&M College, and a Master of Arts from Troy State University, Lieutenant General Honore has also received several honorary doctorates. He is a sought-after public speaker and media commentator on disaster preparedness, crisis management, and leadership. He authored several books on the subject, including one that says, "Don't Get Stuck on Stupid." He also founded the Green Army, an organization focused on environmental issues in Louisiana, and has been a vocal advocate for protecting the state's coastlines and communities. He considers environmental protection a matter of national security. Please help me welcome Lieutenant General Russel Honore.
Thank you. Well, thanks for that warm welcome. I knew things were going to be good when I saw my schedule this morning and see I was coming to Ragley. I knew things were going to be better when I got here and said we got boudin and jambalaya and a killer homemade cake that will match anything at the state fair. It's good to be here with you. I am retired, but I ain't tired. I made 78 a couple of weeks ago, and my wife keeps challenging me about these long drives across the state. But I think the best thing we can do is to leave this place better than we found it. We've had multiple generations of people here that has toiled in this land to make a living, to provide the timber, the beef, and even the petrochemical that the rest of the world has used. And here we are faced today with another challenge. You know we in trouble when something say carbon capture, sequestration, and Exxon like it. The reason they like it, not only Exxon but all the companies, is that they're going to give them your tax money to store this carbon. It's a ripoff. It's a bamboozle. And it's a big old lie. And that lie comes with a lot of risk to you. They're asking you, say, we want to come through your property without any restrictions, or where can it be, around a school, around a recreation center, or next to your home. Very little restrictions. They can put it there. Next thing they're going to do is drill underneath the Chico Aquifer. Since we started the Green Army in 2012, we fought to save our aquifers, because our aquifers are at risk of being polluted. One of them is the reason they had to replace that bridge. You know why they had to replace it? Because when they go down there and drill, there's so much pollution in that water underneath that I-10 bridge, they're going to tap their aquifer. So I don't know when we're going to get a new bridge there or how it will be constructed so they don't hit that aquifer. Because the pollution in that water underneath the bridge has eaten up the concrete. Nobody from the state will tell you that. We just go along to get along. Well, know I'm in good company because we started tonight with a prayer. We got to pray, but we got to move our feet. Pray, but move your feet, and you're doing that. And you gave thanks to the blessings of this nation that previous generations have given us in honoring the flag and the Pledge of Allegiance. This is just as important to our nation as any issue that we face today in America. Our air, our water, and our land are being challenged. And to Louisiana, yes, it's created jobs. No doubt about that. But we have a history here of not making them clean up their mess. And now they want to create another potential mess. What happens if we lose the Chico Aquifer? Where are you going to drink water from? You don't have the Mississippi River. The Calcasieu is already polluted to no end. Where are you going to get water from if they mess up the Chico Aquifer? That is a blessing from God. And now we're talking about we're going to drill through it. And you know what they already have going through the Chico Aquifer is old pipelines. We've got over 60,000 abandoned wells in Louisiana. A lot of them are down into that aquifer because they never have been properly capped or removed. The other thing we have along our coast is abandoned pipelines. Any one of them in combination with this pure carbon could be a catastrophe for the people of Louisiana. I salute you for standing up for the right thing. A fellow told me some years ago when I got going down in the legislature, and we fought this for the last 2 years in the legislature, the number one issue on this governor's table his first month in office was carbon capture. Who told me that? His staff. They got more calls about carbon capture than everything else. So here's what we do. Pick up your phone and call every day. You got to be a pain in you know what. You with me? You got to be like a broken record. If you ain't calling, you're emailing. Because if they don't hear from you, they think you don't care. Because they think you've gone to Facebook and you're speaking out, but you got to call your legislature, and you got to call legislators, and you got to call the governor every day. You just put it on speed dial, and you hit that number, and say, no to carbon capture in my parish. Because if they don't hear from you, they think you don't care. You show you care here tonight. And I want to thank the organizers for your hard work. This is a very American thing to do. This is why we say we got a First Amendment. The right to challenge our government, to say you're not doing this right. That's what our forefathers did. And you live in a very peculiar part of Louisiana. This thing used to be called no man's land out there. So very independent, strong-willed ancestors you had that came here with a right to free, to enjoy the land and the peace and quiet and develop the estates that are in many of your names now. And it's time we protect it. Because Boy Scouts, stand up. Stand up, Boy Scouts. That's who this is for. Let's give them a round of this is for them. And I hope the Louisiana legislature would learn to live by the Boy Scout motto. Be prepared. You with me? Be prepared. Because they're not prepared. They're folded over to the rich and the powerful. But we, the people of Louisiana, got to continue to speak up. God bless you. I got to leave because my wife got me on the clock. It take me 2.5 hours to get back. And she tracing me on the phone. I see you in photos now. All right. Goodbye, y'all. God bless America.
Next, we're going to have a video. Mr. Joe Petrie is going to show us a video. But I do want to thank you, Lieutenant General Honore, again for coming and taking your time out of your schedule as well and driving as far as you did. Thank you so much. Let me get this off. What's this little thing? Oh, I keep moving it.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Petrie. I'm from Oberlin. I'm with We the People. I just kind of forgot my green shirt in my uniform. We're going to have a quick video. It's going to show and give some testimony about what happened in Satorsha, Mississippi, when the pipeline erupted. And there's also a section on a lake in Africa. That was a natural disaster, but it does demonstrate the potential danger and the lethal aspect of this thing if we have a large plume come up. And so we'll get it started. Sorry, y'all.
First responders said it was like a zombie movie.
911. She's spraying on the crowd, and she's shaking. She's kind of drooling out of her mouth. I don't know if she's having a seizure or not. Tell me exactly what had happened. Like, I was driving, and I ran into, like, a lot of fumes. Like, there's a lot of noise going on. Because I didn't know if anything was going to explode. I don't know what's going on.
And we finished the at nighttime. And we were on our way back. And yeah, around about 7 o'clock, I saw a big explosion. I was there when it happened. It actually just, big cloud of smoke went up in the, whatever went up in the air. And I called my mother immediately. And I told her, I said, Mama, this pipeline that blew up here, we on our way to come get y'all. And by the time we turned on Prairie Creek Road off number 3, the car just shut off and went dead. We woke up at the hospital.
So you passed out at that point?
Yes.
Okay. Now, we have also with us, we have Thelma Brown, and Thelma is Emerson's mother?
Yes.
Okay, and Thelma, tell us what about that phone call and what you were doing when it came and what happened.
I sure will. When they didn't come, I just got in the room and I thought about it. I said, let me get me a towel and we'll close up in one room. And people were calling me, telling me I had to get out, you got to get out. Some was saying stay, some was saying go. It was just like, He was about 4 months at that time.
Okay, and the other two were a little bit older.
Yes,
And one of them had asthma,
yes.
and that started getting a lot worse.
Both of them have asthma, and the little girl, she even had more now, just this explosion.
Went to bed, basically with the kids.
Yes.
And gave it up.
I gave it up.
Yeah.
Whatever will be, will
But you couldn't get out.
be. No.
Over the weekend, dozens become sick and even more had to leave their homes after a gas leak and explosion in Yazoo County. Around 300 residents evacuate their carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide that leaked into the air after the incident near Sartarsha.
I think the leak happened, or the rupture happened somewhere around 7 o'clock that night. The company didn't call in until somewhere around closer to 8 to say, hey, we've got a CO2 leak. So we didn't know what we had early on. And we had no idea it was CO2, which you won't smell, you won't see any of that. So fortunately, once we got closer, we could hear the leak. It sounded like a jet engine crashed in your backyard, and our vehicle started, just spitting and sputtering. So we decided to go ahead and pop in air at that point. So we were dressed head to toe as if it was a fire, or natural gas, or whatever. We were covered. And my crew got there on the side by side, and we noticed coming in, it sounded like it was running kind of rough. Wasn't really wanting to run very well, and we were passing these cars that were sitting in the middle of the highway, headlights on, maybe the flash was on some of them, doors open, some not open. Nobody around these vehicles. It was like they just vanished. So we continued on in the town. There was a deputy from Yazoo County that had started searching door to door. He had no protection on. And finally he got in bad shape, just like everybody else was coming out of there. So we had to get him out of the hot zone to get medical treatment. They were just laying there, vomit covered on the ground, waiting on the ambulance to get there. Come up on another vehicle on that gravel road. He said, "Have a vehicle?" It's like, "Yeah." Got victims. Like, I don't make the same face. I was like, "Uh-oh." And at that point, our vehicle was not running well at all. It was like just spitting and sputtering. So we bailed out, and I told our driver, I was like, "Just go away. Go find somewhere where this thing will run. Even if we have to bring them to you, drag them back to you, just don't let it die." So he did that. He got turned around. We started busting windows. Looking inside there, I didn't think they were alive. Just from outside the window, you could barely see any respirations. They were all slumped over the seat. All of them had foam coming out of their mouth. And you get to watch them a little closer. They may have been breathing 6 times a minute, 8 times a minute, which is not good. Once we got them out, and got them in ambulances, which was another ordeal in a rural community, getting multiple ambulances there. Most communities like that only have one. And once you fill it up, that's it. So we'd had some more coming from surrounding cities and counties. At that point, the command post said that the Weather Service had done a plume model to see where this gas went. And based on that plume model, it went through the village, across the river, and into some agricultural fields where it had some sporadic housing. I think we got an additional 8 out of those houses, and brought them back to be taken to the hospital. And I think 40 to 50 people were taken to the hospital that night. After the event, we went closer to the site, and everything was ice. The road was ice, the trees were ice, the wildlife was ice, everything was ice. That's the only way I knew it was some type of CO2. Just everything was frozen.
It has been 5 days since a major gas leak in Yazoo County sent a whole town fleeing their homes.
Well, throughout the week, roads have been treated and virtually everyone is back in their homes, but the burden has not gone away.
12 News' Alex Love joins us in studio and explains how these folks are feeling.
One of the closest to Highway 3, the Douglas family home was hit hard by the carbon dioxide leak, but feels they were one of the last to get out.
My wife had brought the dogs out to use the bathroom before we go to bed. The dogs come back in, but she didn't come back in. She was laid up against the porch. She couldn't breathe. I got her in the house. I called the sheriff's department and they told me we had a gas leak.
Though they didn't require treatment in the hospital, since moving back in Sunday, Larry and his wife have found themselves coughing frequently and ill.
Been sick in her stomach, can't eat, don't have no appetite, having headaches. We were sitting at the table eating supper the other night. I looked over at her, she had blood running down her nose.
While the company, Denbury, has shut off the pipe and begun the repair process, the Douglases and others have trouble settling back in, fearing an accident like this could happen again.
One of Africa's most bizarre natural disasters occurred on the 21st of August 1986 in a remote mountainous region of northwest Cameroon. It's estimated that between 1,700 to 2,000 people lost their lives. When outsiders entered the area after the disaster, they found whole villages full of corpses and pastures full of dead cattle. People had seemingly died where they stood or slept. The bodies of men, women and children lay sprawled in the roads or dead in their beds. The bodies showed no signs of physical. No explosion, no volcanic eruption, and with no industry using toxic materials anywhere nearby, it seemed a mystery as to what could have caused such deadly devastation. The answer lay in one of the strangest natural disasters to have happened in modern times. At 9:30 p.m. on August the 21st, 1986, a loud rumbling noise was heard coming from the lake. A huge bubble of water and carbon dioxide gas rose up from the bottom of the lake, sending a column of spray 100 metres into the air and sending a 25-metre high wave across the surface of the lake. At the same time, an estimated 1.2 million cubic metres of gas was released into the atmosphere. This gas cloud, being composed of carbon dioxide, which is heavier than air, began to sink down, forming a layer 50 metres thick, which then flowed over the crater lip, down into the valley towards the surrounding villages. The effects were instantaneous and devastating. As the cloud flowed out from the lake at an estimated speed of 40 kilometres per hour, it suffocated every living thing in its path. People, cattle, wildlife, even insects were smothered. Nothing could escape the deadly cloud. There was nowhere to run, there was nowhere to hide. There was nothing anyone in the path of the cloud could do. The gas cloud passed through the villages of Nios, Cha, Kam and Saboum, killing an estimated 1,700 to 2,000 men, women and children. Around 3,500 cattle were also killed. At a distance of 25 kilometres from the lake, the cloud began to dissipate and some people were able to flee, although many suffering with symptoms of gas poisoning. Around 800 survivors were treated at the main hospital in Yaoundé. It was believed that many of the victims had been poisoned by a mixture of gases that included hydrogen and sulphur, although later doctors concluded that death had occurred from carbon dioxide asphyxiation.
In 2020, a pipeline carrying carbon dioxide
Thank you so much, Mr. Petrie, for handling the technology. That's definitely not my forte, okay? But anyway, right now I'd like, if there are any veterans in the crowd with us, would you please stand so we can recognize you? And now, if there are any elected officials, would you please stand? So before we start with the rest of the panelists, I do want you to know that I emailed and invited all of our elected officials. I asked them to please post this meeting on their Facebook page for us to help get the word out. I did not receive one response. I take it back, I'm sorry. Congressman Mike Johnson's office did let me know they could not be here. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to our next panelist is Mr. Brad LeBlanc. He was born in Opelousas, Louisiana, St. Landry Parish, but then he transplanted to Lafayette. He's a graduate of USL, Lafayette 1980, Bachelor of Science in Geology. He's a petroleum geologist and geophysicist. Total 45 years as an oil and gas exploration and development, 13 years as a senior geoscientist with a private employer. Previously, 25 years as manager of geology and geophysics for both private and publicly traded companies. He's an expert witness for court proceedings, and he has provided multiple testimonies for the Louisiana Legislative Assessment Committee. Mr. Brad LeBlanc.
Thank you, Mona. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll get by the first couple slides. Thank you for being here. Like General Honore said, it takes all of us to put action to our prayers and to our ideas and concerns regarding politics and our fellow politicians. Safety issues really creep to the top of my first concerns, but that really wasn't what got me into this whole issue and why we've been traveling the state to try to educate you on just why what you naturally believe is true. I'm just going to give you the reasons why, because you're here, you're concerned, you know that the government probably can't keep its promise or give you many guarantees when it comes to keeping CO2 where they say that it's going to stay. And I'm here to tell you why your concerns are valid, okay? When we first got into it, the company I'm working for had an issue with Denbury wanting to take over a well that we had in a producing unit in the Austin Chalk, thank you. And they wanted to convert that producing well into a CO2 injection well. Right away we said, well, no, we don't want to participate in that. And the landmen that had been working with me over the course of a year and a half or two finally got around to telling me that, well, look, if you don't want to participate, they can just take your land. And I said, no, that can't be true. So they sent me an entire bill, the 2020 or the 2009 Carbon Sequestration Act and Expropriation Act, which really came in around 2020. Stranded minerals were one thing. If you take a well that's been producing and you start using it for CO2, you're going to leave a lot of oil and gas behind. Now, this well was making 45 barrels a day. It had made maybe $12 million worth of revenue, but still, who knows how long that particular well might have produced for. That was in the Masters Creek field in Beauregard Parish. As I began to study it, and then I realized I had to call Brett Guyman, Phil Carver, let those gentlemen know that we totally disagree with this. The laws have been passed. What can we do but talk to our legislative committees? Brett was very welcoming. He invited me to roundtable discussions. We talked last year. We testified again in February, March, April of this year. We were there in Baton Rouge trying to get their attention. But it is apparent that even though God gives instinct to animals and common sense to mankind, when money gets in the way of men, common sense takes wings of an eagle and flies away. Money seems to be what matters, right? So the safety issues really got my concern because you have so many wells that have been drilled in Louisiana, it's become a pincushion of wells. They will tell you that, look, we're going to stick this CO2 down below thousands of feet, and you're going to have this impermeable shale layer, and it's going to hold that CO2 in place. The problem with that, and what they're not telling you, is that the many, many wells that we have, and there's about 400,000 combined active and inactive wells in Louisiana, is that CO2 can easily find one of those boreholes and work its way back to the top. Now, why can it do that? Because we have a cement sheath that has been placed around the casing, but it's a very imperfect cement sheath. That cement sheath has a lot of holes in it. We run cement bond logs. We can see all the vulgular spaces. And really, no engineer that I've spoken with has any of this caught them by surprise. They know that it's true. They know that if you try to put CO2 in the ground, it's going to really have a hard time staying there in a sealed form, especially if it's not in a hydrocarbon trap that has been depleted. The thing about CO2, you probably know that nitrogen is 78% in the atmosphere and oxygen is 21%, argon 0.93. CO2 is way down the list at 0.04, but you have to realize that mankind's contribution of that 0.04% is anywhere from 3% to 10%. So we're not talking about trying to control 0.004 or 420 parts per million. 0.04% would equate to about 4 seats in a 10,000 seat auditorium like the Caving Dome in Lafayette. But if you're talking about just 10% of that at 0.004, now you're talking about not even 1 complete seat. Plus, the land has a good contribution besides just mankind's contribution. The land contributes quite a bit, but the oceans contribute quite a bit more. The oceans have 50 times more CO2 than does the atmosphere, and there's twice as much water on planet Earth as there is land. Now, so you can see from this slide that you've got land contributing quite a bit, but the oceans circulate around the globe in what's called a multi-decadal oscillation, whether it's the Atlantic or the Pacific. And as those oceans warm, they release CO2 to the atmosphere, and as they cool, they actually absorb CO2. And you can see that graph at the bottom. That's over 100 years. It's going back and forth between hot and cold, hot and cold. So if the Pacific is really warm, the United States is probably going to have a pretty warm winter. And conversely, if it's cool, the United States may have a cool winter. Back in 2016, NASA published a report stating that a quarter to half of Earth's vegetated lands has shown significant greening over the last 35 years, largely due to the rising levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide. April 2016. Where does that come from? That was an international team of 32 authors from 24 institutions using high-resolution imagery looking at the leaf index of the planet. But look at that part about in Africa where the Sahara Desert is. What happened there in the Sahara? The ancient Sahara was really different, about 6,500 to 10,500 years ago, when a sudden increase in monsoon rains transformed the region into a savanna-like environment, making it habitable for both humans and wildlife. That period of lush vegetation lasted thousands of years before returning to its arid conditions. Now, did the Industrial Revolution exist back then? No, it did not. This is what the planet did on its own. So what I'm here to tell you is that when mankind says they're going to use direct air capture techniques to try to create some big giant fans and suck CO2 out of the atmosphere, it's a drop in the bucket to what the Earth is doing to itself. It is replenishing its own CO2 every day, every moment. Every moment that life exists on planet Earth, CO2 is consistently replenished. Regardless of what we do, the Earth is going to consistently do that day by day. Some of the men that I've studied, Richard Lindzen out of MIT, has made the statement, it will be remembered as the greatest mass delusion in the history of the world that CO2, the life of plants, was considered for a time to be a deadly poison. Richard Lindzen out of MIT is just one of the men I've studied. Judith Curry, Georgia Institute of Technology, John Christie, professor, University of Alabama at Huntsville, has been studying climate all of his life. I have pretty much downloaded everything that he submitted to the Senate committees in DC, studied that, read that, did that just really as a hobby. So for the last 20 years, I've been looking at the whole study of climate change just because I doubted what Al Gore was saying, that it was the greatest, existential threat that the Earth ever faced. But look, back on the real world, what we face, if you have pipelines that rupture, like what you just saw in that video, one thing I wanted to let you remember about that is that CO2 is heavier than air. Did you notice in that explosion how CO2 just kind of hugged the ground? It stayed real close to the ground. Methane is lighter than air. It'll go straight up. So if a gas pipeline ruptures, it goes straight up. If a CO2 pipeline ruptures, it hugs the ground. Now, that CO2 rupture occurred about 1.5 miles or 2 miles southeast of Satarsha, Mississippi, and that black oval is the distance that it traveled, that plume. Now, in this particular 2025 session, we tried to get our legislature to limit the distance that CO2 operators could put a pipeline to a school, a community, a neighborhood. We wanted them to go for like 2,500 feet, but the most we could get was 500 feet out of them. So, I mean, it doesn't track with safety protocols at all. Whether it's pipeline or whether it is possibly contaminating an aquifer, we are really trying to get them to think hard, think long, take your time, don't rush through this because you're going to create a catastrophe. This is just an image of Louisiana with the pipeline that Denbury had that Exxon bought, running from Mississippi up there, Jackson, cutting through Louisiana, all the way on to Beaumont. All those yellow triangles are places where that pipeline has ruptured. It's ruptured 13 times in 17 years. One of those was just right there at Sulphur. That was last year. And those are the amounts that came out of it. Now this is what that looked like. And you can see how the CO2 once again is hugging the ground. Now if you were to drive through that and you were just taking your time, then your car may actually begin to sputter, just like the first responder's vehicle began to sputter. You might actually have a car that stops on you. You would probably put your flashers on. You would try to get out, but you would lose consciousness, and then you would start foaming at the mouth. And then if you were lucky enough to be found in time, the first responders would actually get you out of there and then bring you to the hospital. But you may not. Time is of the essence because this is close to about, I'm going to say 150,000 parts per million. That equates to about a 5% atmospheric concentration that you're caught into. This is what it looks like when it's not in that exploding form. I put this slide in here just so that you can know that via eminent domain, they can take that right there and put that on your property, regardless of whether you want them to or not. That's where the law reads now. The law reads much like the sheriff of Nottingham receiving the command and the authority from the governor, from the conservation commissioner, to be able to go on your property and put this if they need it. Now, if that doesn't get your goat, I don't know what will. But you have cherished property. I'm sure that some of you may have had property in your family for generations. And you don't want that unless you make a deal with them and you allow them to come on your property. But that's not the way it stands. While you were sleeping, they were working to give the authority to certain specific operators that are coming into the state of Louisiana. The risks of groundwater contamination, if you go to any well and there's water situated in the cellar around the casing and it's bubbling, that means that the gas is coming up from behind the casing, or you have damaged casing, but you have a very imperfect seal there. This happens so many times, I can't tell you. This is from Anthony and Graphia, Ted, X video that's available online that you can find. How often does this happen? Anthony Graffia stated that just after, this was just one of the many studies that you can find online, by the way. At the bottom is the age of wells in years. This is, I think, over 75,000 wells that have been studied. And then the percent of those wells that have issues with cement or casing integrity. After 5 years, and this is an age-related degradation thing. So, I mean, if you're over 50, you understand age-related degradation. Things start breaking down. You know, so at 4 years, you're up to 20%. At 17 years, you're all the way up to 58%. Now, this is not a formula for success if you're a CO2 operator. If they're telling you that you don't have a thing to worry about, because we're going to make sure that that CO2 stays down there, you can easily tell them that that CO2 can find a way through some of the borehole or possibly a fault, and that can act as a migration pathway for the CO2 to get back to either your aquifer, your crawfish pond, or your natural spring. In Texas, in the Permian Basin, they've been doing enhanced oil recovery for quite a few years now, decades really. This particular pond this gentleman is looking at is part of Lake Beamer or Bummer. This is out in Pecos County, Texas, very close to the Permian Basin. This is a very toxic mess. You know, you don't want to have something like that. It actually looks kind of pretty, I guess, on a clear day. But Ty Edwards, general manager of the Middle Pecos Groundwater Conservation District, said it will take about $50 to $100 million to clean that mess up. And as we speak, wells are still making this particular lake get bigger and bigger. Imagine this happening underground. That's what you can see on the surface. We were at Lake Kincaid not long ago. It's a beautiful lake. It's a little paradise, really. But imagine that beautiful lake, that beautiful paradise that people have fished at for all these years, turning into a toxic dump, and all the fish are just coming to the top as unable to be able to handle the acidity of that water. Here's another one in Crane County, Texas, a geyser without a wellhead. This one just burst out, and everything around it is very white, salty. So it's CO2 that is kind of pushing this aquifer up. Bruce Darling, PhD geologist, hydrogeologist there in Texas. He's retired now, but I did speak with him a couple of weeks ago about this because he was featured in this article saying the pressure that you're seeing here is not natural formation pressure. That's being supported from some other operation, and the only other operation that's around there is enhanced oil recovery using CO2. It's not just CO2, it's heavy metals come up with the CO2, and those heavy metals and toxic waste. I've got geologists and well control experts stating that an evaluation and assessment of 500,000 acres of ground in West Texas is imminently needed, and that they suffer a high risk of cross-flow and well control issues, posing catastrophic risk to groundwater tables. So it's not just me. I don't want you to think it's just me. I've got 45 years in this business, but as soon as they started with this methodology that they were using for us, they sent us a letter. They were telling us what they wanted to do. This was Denbury. They wanted to take that well and they wanted to inject CO2 from 4,500 feet all the way down to 13,500 feet. Now, it's not solid sand bodies. There's some shale in between. But they wanted to have that privilege to be able to do that. Right away, the issue in my mind got to be that the very place where they're wanting to put CO2 is the very place that oil companies don't typically concentrate on placing a lot of cement behind pipe. When we drill a well, we drill it to a certain point, say 2,500 feet, we stop, we set casing, we run cement, and that cement kind of percolates up the backside of it. And like I said earlier, it's not just one solid, beautiful sheath. It's actually in a vulgular form, but we're really mostly concerned about just the base of that casing. Then we drill another section of hole all the way down to say like 10,000 feet. And at that point, we might set more casing. Once again, that casing is, we're mostly concerned about setting cement at the base of that and possibly wherever there might be oil and gas. But if there's not an oil and gas reservoir there, we're just not going to be that concerned about setting cement. You know, here you've got Denver proposing to put cement at 4,500 feet, all the way down to 13,000 feet, in the very places that we don't concentrate much cement, and that is a formula for a catastrophe. Because you don't have to wait until that cement degrades. You already don't have enough cement behind that casing. That's my main problem with this. And if it's not going to be well bores, it could be false. This is an example of a four-way closure. You can see the green dash outline. This is what I would like them to have done. This is what I testified to back in February, March timeframe, that if you have to stick it in the ground, which I'm not in favor of to begin with, then stick it into a known depleted reservoir that is a four-way closure. That way, it has a better chance of staying put. But if it comes into contact with the fall, as you see that green line does, it also has a chance of leaking up. But what Denbury is actually proposing is to put that CO2, you can see at the bottom where it's going into the ground, on a monoclinal dip, so that CO2 gas will just keep traveling up, following the path of least resistance until it finds its own stopping point. Now that stopping point, like I said, it may find its way up to a well bore, but that stopping point could well be your livelihood. If you're in Forest Hill, it could definitely wreck your livelihood. Wherever you are, if you love your Chico aquifer, it could definitely affect your life. CO2 will not become its own seal through mineralization. That is what the legislators were told by certain experts, PhDs, whether they were at LSU or UL there in Lafayette. But DO-funded research said, no, that's not true. Only a very small fraction of the CO2 gas becomes rock. The rest of it keeps moving. Here's what I was telling you earlier. You've got over 421,000 wells, both active and inactive, in that blue shaded area in the southwest portion of Louisiana is where most of all the CO2 projects are located. All those wells can act like migration pathways to help that CO2 get back to the surface. Faults can also do that. This is an example of a fault that reached the surface. This is some of our own private seismic data. Faults are all over the place. Here's a tan portion of Louisiana. That represents the Chico aquifer, and all those faults that cross east-west, those faults, many of those faults come back to the surface. You can see Beauregard Parish in magenta. Here is a map of the CO2, the Chico aquifer. It runs from about 100 feet, of course, all the way to the surface, down to about 12 to 1,400 feet down at the coast. So on its way up, this is just a cross section. You can imagine all those vertical lines. If those are well bores and you're injecting CO2 down below the Chico aquifer system, if you don't have a very, very perfect seal, what I'm telling you is that the chances are very high that the cement sheath around all the well bores that that particular CO2 plume is going to come in contact with are going to find its way back to the surface. I don't make any money for being up here telling you this. I just have always had a grave concern that this was definitely going to be the issue. In Carthage High School, Carthage, Texas, this is another well from a blowout. This was a gas blowout. And finally, the gas made it to this particular well that they had on school. They had to transfer the kids over to another location. So this has happened before. If it's happened before, it'll happen again. Limitations of science and engineering relevant to protecting drinking water, like the Mahoma aquifer, was a case study. Charles Harvey is a civil and environmental engineering master at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. His conclusion and recommendations is that geologic CO2 storage is an experimental project allowing private interests like Denbury, Exxon, or other, to risk the safety of public resources is not justified by science or engineering. Folks, that's what I've come here to tell you today. That without your help becoming more active in doing just what General Honore stated, you know, we can't do this alone. We've made quite a few of these presentations. We've almost lost track of how many we've done. But we definitely need your help. I think that we can get the governor to finally listen. We have had a chance to speak with him personally. Did he listen? Time will tell. But we need your support to back us up. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Brad. Our next speaker is Mr. Mike Nichols. He's from Pitkin out of Vernon Parish. Mike's had 40 years' experience in natural resources conservation, water resources specialist for surface and groundwater quality, and he's also been a land management specialist responsible for over 500,000 acres of restored forest land and coastal wetlands in Louisiana. Mike's been in the trenches for several years trying to expose carbon capture sequestration. Please help me welcome. I'm so sorry. Please help me welcome Mike Nichols.
Thank you. We the people. We have one politician in the House tonight that ought to tell y'all everything y'all need to know. It's been like this the whole time. I was in Baton Rouge for a month. Took off work, parked my gas, went down and fought with our legislators to no avail. So, you know, y'all have to take that up with where y'all vote, who y'all vote for. The way I look at it, they have not been working in our favor and not representing the people of Louisiana. You know, we're here to deal with the facts. You know, all this is about money. I think we all know that. And y'all remember COVID. You know, here we are, more money, more money, more money. Remember how much money we spent on COVID? And now, same thing with global warming, climate change. Give me a lot of money, pay a lot of taxes, and we'll fix this for y'all. Folks, it's time to stand up. That's why I'm here tonight. They call me Sabi, that's short for chemo Sabi. I'm not here like Brad says, we're not getting paid. We're here on our own time, and we're here for the right reasons. And you have to make a decision who you're going to listen to. You're going to listen to the people that aren't from here. My great-grandpa settled this country. You heard Jim Honore talk about no man's land. That's how long my family's been here, our family's been here. My wife Linda here tonight, our family's sixth generation. She's sixth generation. So we've been here pretty much since this place got started, y'all. There we go. Okay. CO2 is carbon dioxide. It's about 28% carbon and 72% oxygen, 72%. Well, why would you bring that up, Mike? Because that's what our tax dollars are being used for, to pump 72% oxygen in the ground. And you're going to hear all this carbon capture, carbon sequestration. Trees capture carbon. Plants capture carbon. Man does. We capture carbon dioxide. And that's a very important distinction, folks, as we move forward on this and discuss these things. If you look at carbon dioxide equivalents, which I'll answer any questions after the meeting, but we're a lot more efficient with nature-based projects, with agriculture, forestry, and trees than these people can ever be, folks. They're joshing us. You know, if we didn't have carbon dioxide, we wouldn't have grandma's homemade rose on Sunday. So I'm not totally against carbon dioxide, y'all. I mean, it's got a lot of good uses. It's got a lot of medical uses. We pump it in the greenhouse, dry ice. There's all kinds of things we can use carbon dioxide for. But now we got some people say, well, let's capture it and let's pump it in the ground. I sure would like to know what's inside those heads. I sure would. Y'all like to see some research done on that instead of pumping carbon dioxide in the ground. We got about 100 people a year die from carbon dioxide in the workplace, and you're going to get people that stand up here and tell you it's not dangerous. It's very dangerous when it's compressed. That's the problem with all this. You have to compress this carbon dioxide to such high pressures to be able to transport it in the pipelines and pump it in the ground. It's got to be at least a above 1400 PSI to get in a supercritical state. And from what I understand, it's gonna be about 2000 PSI, 2200 PSI. And God only knows what they're gonna require to pump it in the ground a mile deep. Because if you check on what's been done so far, it's like top secret military information. They won't tell you what those pressures are. This is just one big witch's brew, folks, that they're gonna capture from the smokestacks. We all been around the industry our whole life. You got on carbon dioxide, you got hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide, and anybody that's been around the industry knows that hydrogen sulfide is gonna kill you a long time before this carbon dioxide. You're not gonna have to worry about carbon dioxide. Just one little whiff of hydrogen sulfide and you're out of here. You got sweet corrosion from carbon dioxide, sour corrosion from hydrogen sulfide, excuse me. And you know, why I put this up here, this is no secret. All you guys and gals in the industry, y'all know about this stuff. It's very hazardous. They've already closed the school down right here in East Texas for carbon dioxide, not carbon monoxide. I called over there and tried to get some answers. Once again, very closed lips about it, wouldn't tell me what happened. Could have been just a random incident, right? Well, then you had a situation up in Midwest Wyoming where they closed the school for a whole year. So you can argue about this stuff being safe all you want. By the way, that's enhanced oil recovery. That's where they only use the minimum amount necessary to push the oil up out of the ground, not billions and billions of tons of compressed carbon dioxide. We're talking about a significant build out. They're looking at 90,000 miles of CO2 pipelines, which is 545,000 acres of land, and that's not including access and temporary workspaces. You heard Brad talk about the water part of it. If you look around the world, the scientists around the world agree that there's a lot of questions about whether this is going to get into the groundwater aquifers. It's not my opinion, folks. This is scientific evidence. Chico Aquifer, why in the world would you pick the Chico Aquifer to inject this stuff? It just, every time I think about it, it astonishes me. Who can come up with this stuff? Who picked this area? AOC, the person that thinks cows poop too much? You know, that's the kind of people that's singling us out, y'all. Well, what happens when it gets in the water? It lowers the pH. You get acidic water. And how's that going to affect our bodies? How's that going to affect our health? Well, we know it leaches heavy metals out. If we get heavy metals in the water, we're done. Okay, this is a natural gas site. I know that's not very clear, but that's the Aliso Canyon site in California. Why am I comparing it to that? Because this is really all we have to compare it to about how this is going to work out when we pump CO2 in the ground. Largest leak in United States history. It lasted for 4 months. Okay, how are you going to get to a CO2 well to stop it from leaking? Did y'all watch the film? Did y'all hear about how this stuff works? Engines won't run. You pass out. I mean, it's going to be really hard to plug one of these wells off once they start leaking. And look what happened years later. Serious health risk, increased risk of low birth weight in infants. And there's been numerous other disasters in the United States. There was one in Texas, not Moss Bluff, Louisiana, but Moss Bluff, Texas. And they were bragging about the reason it wasn't so harmful is it caught on fire, and this was natural gas, methane. It caught on fire and burned up. So it wasn't so bad. Well, boy, that's a heck of a notion, huh? There's been other cases like in Kansas, it destroyed a gas leak and destroyed 26 businesses and 2 fatalities. And this is from natural gas storage sites, which is about the only thing we have to compare it to with this CO2 stuff. Okay, the states that have looked at this, Montana, South Dakota, Illinois, Louisiana. Montana was looking at doing 125,000 acres and about 15 of these Class 6 wells. Those ranchers stood up in Montana and they said, no, you're not. We're not standing for it, okay? They scaled it back to like 2,000 acres and 1 test well. If you look in South Dakota, they had 80 pending lawsuits against the landowners for eminent domain. Their legislature stood up and said, nope, ain't doing it. The governor signed the bill. No eminent domain for pipelines. Okay, the site up in Illinois, the showcase site at ADM, it leaked. Okay, and they passed the bill in Illinois. I never thought I'd see the day when I would admit that people in Illinois were smarter than people in Illinois. that they're smarter than us down here in Louisiana. But I'm gonna have to give them this one because they banned it. You can't pump it beneath their Muhammad aquifer. They passed state legislation and said you can't do it. Okay, we're exporting more than that LNG than we're recovering in the Haynesville Shale. I just want y'all to think about that for a minute. Okay, these CO2 plumes, if you look at Iceland, it's 31 miles from any populated area. It's out in the middle of the ocean. If you look at the Sleipner project in the Norwegian Sea, it's 160 miles. So what I'm getting at here, folks, these people have the good sense to not put close to communities. That's all I'm saying. And you might as well ask a six-legged horse where the CO2 plume's going to go, because they don't have a clue. So don't buy into that nonsense. And look, I know the other mic ain't here tonight, but the right mic is here, and I'm running for Congress, and I just want to let y'all know that this is one of the main reasons I'm running for Congress, is because what's happening right now, we don't have a voice in Washington, and that needs to change, folks. So I'll be around for questions after the meeting, and thank y'all very much for being here tonight. I appreciate that.
Thank you for running for Congress.
Y'all bear with me. My younger sister Elaine just got this text message, and I thought it was real interesting. I think it's appropriate. It says, Louisiana is moving in the right direction, and Senator Mark Abraham is helping lead the way. From smart investments in our infrastructure to real support for public safety, he's delivering for our state. See for yourself in this video, and it's paid for by a Republican delegation. She texts back and says, stop carbon capture, say no. She gets this message back, you have successfully opted out of messages from the Republican Legislative Delegation Campaign Committee. You will receive no further messages. Y'all, they don't respect us. From calling us ankle biters, to gaslighters, to even accusing anybody that is against this CO2 being referenced that we are like Charlie Kirk's murderer. This is ridiculous. They need to know who we are, and we need to let them know about it. Please, you've got to do something. Okay. I'll calm down. I'll try to calm down. Whew. Okay, so our next speaker is Colonel Mark Gilry. He's from Ruby, Louisiana, out of Rapides Parish. He is a graduate of Louisiana College. He's a retired Air Force colonel who served in various command positions and Pentagon staff positions. He strongly opposes the CCS agenda and its consequences to our property rights and our environment. Please help me introduce Colonel Mark Gilry. Yes.
Well, welcome to the Coalition Against CCS, Carbon Capture and Sequestration. You're hearing all about it, and you've heard a lot so far tonight about the science pieces, about what will happen to it when it gets in the ground, how it can move around, where it might go. And then Brad told you all about that. And Mike got up here and told you all about what is actually going to happen to your water, what could potentially happen to your water. Now, what I want to talk to you about is something more on the administrative side of the House, and what the legislature, that's your legislature, and your legislator, and your senator has voted for these things. I want you to know that ahead of time. And I'm going to explain to you exactly what they've done to enable all these things in order to allow them to happen. This is about our land, this is about our water, and this is about our future. Your property is the generational wealth that you have. You not only pass on to your posterity, your children, your grandchildren, their ability to have something, but you pass on their ability to survive and to thrive, to make something more than you had, to make a better future and to sustain themselves. And I'm telling you right now, your legislator and your senator has put that in great danger. And here's what happened. So I'm going to talk to you about what, first of all, what the Louisiana Constitution guarantees to you when it comes to property rights. And then I'm going to tell you what your legislature has done. And then I'm going to tell you what SaveMountLouisiana.org, that's who I represent tonight, what we are doing in order to challenge these, what we believe are unconstitutional laws. And I'm going to give you an argument of why we think that they're unconstitutional. First of all, you understand that in our Western tradition of government, the people are the group that make a government. We are the governed. And the governed get together and decide how they were going to be governed. That's where we get this whole idea, the people, we the people. That's where it comes from. We determined that we want to make, we want, out of the chaos, we want to bring order. And that order is called government. All of us get together, we write something that constitutes what the government is going to be. That's the Constitution. We empower the Constitution. The Constitution becomes the bedrock, the foundation for what government sets on top of. Hear me when I say this. The government is not the Constitution. The Constitution authorizes the government. We create the powers it can have, and we restrict it from powers it cannot have. That's what we have done as the people. So we got together and we revised this Constitution, by the way, in 1974. And in that preamble to that Constitution, we, the people of Louisiana, desiring to protect individual rights to what? Life, liberty, and property. Those are the three things. We're going to constitute a government to protect those individual rights. We do establish this Constitution. And then that Constitution describes both all of the details of the government that sits on top of it. The Constitution is the creator. The government is the created. The created does not tell the creator what to do. And who is the creator? We are the creator. We are the creator, and we put together this concept called the Constitution of how the government would sit on top of it. That thing doesn't tell this thing what to do, it's the other way around. Why don't you try telling God how to do things and see how that works out for you? He's the creator, you're the created. It works in that direction. Well, it works the same thing with government, much less important, though important for us. The other is eternal, this one is temperate and is here. Section 1, Article 1. Article 1, Section 1 of our Constitution says, all government of right originates with the people, founded on their will alone, and is instituted to protect, what? Say it with me. Life, liberty, and property. Its only legitimate aims is to secure justice, preserve peace, protect the rights, promote the happiness and general welfare of the people. These rights are enumerated. Enumerated means they're numbered. They're numbered out what these rights are. 3 of them, life, liberty, property. And they are inalienable. Inalienable means that they cannot be separated from us. You cannot separate me from my right to life, liberty, and property. Why? Because in our tradition of government, those are given to us by who? God Himself. God gives us that. And we institute a government to protect the rights, not to give the rights, but protect them. So they cannot be separated from us. That's why it says unalienable. And not only that, but its articles are inalienable by the state, and then shall be preserved by the state. So not only does our Constitution proclaim that we can't be separated, it also charges the state, the government that we're going to create, with the job of protecting the rights. That sounds pretty solid to me. In our Constitution, later on in Article 1, Section 2, due process, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, and property, except by due process of law. What is due process of law? First of all, the Constitution, and then the government built upon that creates some laws and says what we can't do. That law is about protecting you from me and me from you. Most importantly, the government from us. It bars people from taking away my life, my liberty, and my property, unless it's a due process of law. And in a due process of law, what has to happen? I have to be accused of a crime. I have to be indicted of that crime. That's part of the accusation. I have to be adjudicated. I have to go in front of a jury of my peers. You get to judge me based on the evidence. And then we decide on a judgment. That's the only way one, some, or all of those rights can be taken away. The only way. Guess who doesn't have the authority to take away your rights? The legislature. The legislature is the government on top of the authority of the Constitution. They are subservient to the Constitution. They can't just decide that they're going to make a law and give away one of those rights. The words on the page say you have to be adjudicated according to the law. The law is the Constitution. In Article 1, Section 4, we're going to talk about what's the name of that? The right to property. Well, what does the Constitution say about that? Every person has the right to acquire, own, and control, and use and enjoy and protect private property. Property shall not be taken or damaged by the state or its political subdivisions, except for public purpose. I'm going to get to that in a minute. It's not what you think it is. And with just compensation paid to the owner, except as specifically authorized in Article 6, or in Section 21, we'll talk about that in a minute. Your property shall not be taken for predominantly by any private person or entity, or transfer to a private person or entity. Louisiana Constitution defines and restricts exceptions for public purpose. I said we were going to talk about that. Public purposes shall be limited. There's a whole massive section inside the Constitution. And by the way, I charge you, don't just ask you, I charge you, you're citizens. It's your responsibility. There's no cavalry coming. You're it. Go look on Louisiana.gov. Read the Constitution. Read Article 1. That's the most important one that you need to read about. Section 4 tells you you have a right to property. The only way it can be taken away is by public purpose. It also states explicitly that public purpose can only be decided by the judicial branch, not the legislative branch. So again and again, we're finding out that our right to property has been covered and is protected by the foundation of our government. Article 6, Section 21, that one little exception there, it's an assistance to local industry. What does it say? The authorization that legislature may authorize, subject to restrictions it may impose, any political subdivision. In other words, only the government has the power to take away one of your rights or to take away your property. And even then, it has to be public purpose, and the judiciary has to make that decision. Declares very directly that public purpose, except for public and necessary purpose, whether the purpose is public and necessary, again, is a judicial question. Well, the Constitution also, in Article 3, this is one of my favorites here, it restricts the legislature from making special laws. The legislature shall not pass a local or special law granting to any private corporation, association, or individual any special or exclusive right, privilege, or immunity. I want you to remember that. That's Article 3 of the Constitution. Restricts the legislature from making laws for those things. Well, if you don't like all this and you want to do something like carbon capture and sequestration, and you want to give someone else the authority to take away people's land, well, you can do it, but you got to change the Constitution. And guess what the Constitution does? Covers that too. Down there in Article 13, it tells us exactly how we can change the Constitution. It takes an amendment. Guess who gets to change the Constitution? You do. Does the legislature have the power to do it? They do not. They cannot change it. They can submit an amendment, and it has to go to all of us in the entire state has to decide whether we're going to accept it or not. So what I'm telling you is that your Constitution in no way allows for the legislature to change it. The number one thing is it protects your right to own property. The number two, it says it can be taken away, but under these limited conditions. And those limited conditions have to be a public purpose. And that public purpose has to be decided by the judiciary. And oh, by the way, if you're going to do it, it can only be a government that can take the land away. And the last thing is you can't, the legislature, specifically the legislature, is told you cannot make a special law giving anyone something special, such as immunity or special privilege. Well, what has your legislature done? In 2008, they started a process of building this carbon capture and sequestration business. In Act number 517 a few years ago, and in Act 61, listen to the words on the page. This comes straight out of the law. Any storage operator is hereby authorized to exercise the power of eminent domain and expropriated needed property to acquire surface and subsurface rights and property interests necessary for the useful purpose of carbon capture and sequestration. Did you hear the words on that page? Well, if you missed it, they'll say it again a little bit later on in paragraph 1110. And it gets even better. Now they say any domestic or foreign corporation. So Shell Oil is owned by some folks over in Europe. And they show up to your house and decide they want some of your land. Guess what the legislature has told them that they can do? They can take it from you. Eminent domain means that they look at your land and they make a determination, I need it for my company, and now I can take it. Let me ask you something. Is that congruent with the Constitution? No. Is that congruent with all the things that I've read to you? And that you can go read for yourself? Absolutely not. The legislature does not have the authority to give away your right to property. They don't have the authority to give away your right to your life or your liberty. They do not. And yet they have done this. They did this in Act 517. They did this in Act 61. They did this in Act 624. They have done this for 5 years. They did this in middle of 2020 when there were riots everywhere and this business of COVID was going on. And when they kept you locked up, they were down in Baton Rouge doing what? Some pretty nefarious business. And now they think they have the authority to do this. The legislators violated the restricting power of the Constitution. But let me tell you something, don't be deceived. Their authority contradicts the Constitution, and it violates the very purpose of government. What is the purpose of government? Again, protect the rights, life, liberty, property. These men, some of them have read this and they've come in and they've told us, I'm sorry I did that. I didn't mean to do that. I'm going to make it right. By the way, they haven't done anything to make it right, and they've known for quite a while. And number two, here's my problem with that kind of business. You either passed a bill you didn't read, which means you're negligent, or you read a bill and you didn't understand it, so that makes you incompetent, or you read the bill and you understood it, and that makes you criminal. Because you have taken away my very right to property, which the Constitution guarantees. So as you can tell, I'm a little upset about it. And I want to do something about it. And Save My Louisiana is doing something about it. We have just, we intend to sue the state over the unconstitutionality of all of these acts and a few more, because it's not the only one. On Sunday night, I received the first draft of that lawsuit, and a few of us have gone through it, and we've edited it, and we're getting ready to drop it, and that's going to be very soon. I don't mean in 2 months or so. I mean in days. And when we drop this thing, the people down in Baton Rouge are going to be really interested in what we have to say. Now, having said all that, now my charge is to you. especially for the men in this room. What is your responsibility to the world around you? You are the protectors and the providers. If you've always sat on your porch and said, well, when they do this, I'm gonna. When they do this, I'm gonna. Well, they better not come after my guns, I'm gonna. Well, let me tell you something. The time has come. This is a basic right. The wolf is at the door. What are you going to do?
Thank you, Colonel. Next, we have Mr. John West from Slagle out of Vernon Parish. He served 20 years as an Army vet infantry with 3 combat tours. He has a BS in environmental management with 13 years applied experience at the state and the federal levels. And he also, his wife is the founder of Fight the Carbon Capture Scan. Welcome, John Slagle, please.
I can't stand behind a doggone podium to save my life. Hey, real quick, first and foremost, before I get to the slides here, if you want to read a book about climate science and how some of those .04s and stuff like that all play into things since the middle of the Second Industrial Revolution, Steve Koonin, Unsettled, probably one of the best books that I've read in my life. It took me about 5 hours, and I think I was about done. So you've heard a couple things about the Chico Aquifer before I get to the slides here. Something important to know about the Chico is, as of 2021, the USGS, United States Geological Survey, they did a study, and they found that the Chico itself provided 48% of the groundwater for industrial, agricultural, and human consumption for the state of Louisiana, not the parishes, the state, right? It's almost 50%. When you look at the number of, and I'm talking about permitting, I get the boring subject, right? So we look at all the permits that are in DNR's website, or Conservation and Energy, or whatever they're calling themselves now. There's 105 proposed wells across 18 parishes in the state of Louisiana. 105 wells. 50% of those are targeted for the Chico or its recharge zone. How are you going to take 50% of 105 and put it into the Chico Aquifer, which provides about 50% of the state's groundwater? That is absolutely asinine, in my opinion, right? It makes zero sense. Second thing, real quick, we talked about, Brad had mentioned something about heavy metals. Number one, our souls are heavy in metal. Sometimes you see that brownish water, that's iron, right? All right, we've got a lot of it here, just because of where we sit in the United States. But the EPA in 2014, March specifically, they made a final ruling that basically they addressed how are we going to manage the supercritical phase CO2 as part of carbon capture and sequestration. What they made a final rule on at the end of the day was it is considered a waste, an industrial waste specifically, and they conditionally excluded it from RCRA C, which is hazardous waste program, but it is still managed under RCRA D, which is basically household type trash, right? But it was conditionally excluded, which means the companies that generate it and the companies that inject it and the state of Louisiana have certain things that they've got to do in order to make sure that it stays out of that hazardous waste characteristic or that category, right? It even gets more complicated when you talk about interstate. So we've heard a lot, Wyoming and Iowa and Illinois, everybody sees it on the news, what's going on. So if they want to send the ethanol CO2 down a pipeline to Louisiana, then every state from Iowa to Louisiana also has had to comply with all of those rules that the EPA set forth. So it's a big, big mess getting ready to happen for all that stuff. So here's a list of the Class 5 wells. I want you to notice something on here since we're in Beauregard, right? You don't see Evergreen Sequestration Hub on here, do you? It's because they don't have a Class 5 permit. That's kind of odd to me. Because one of the things they're supposed to do is validate that the geology down below them that Brad was referencing is conducive and suitable to store the CO2 and keep it retained like they say it's going to happen. They don't have one. So I don't know if they're doing some other seismic or what they're doing, but they don't have a Class 5 permit in DNR right now. But when you go to this page, look at the very bottom, there's their Class 6 well, right? Current status as of October of 2024, it's at the start of the technical review. My thought was maybe they're trying to tie it to another site, which is Draco, which also is part of Beauregard. But that one is, the class 5 well for that one is actually in Vernon. It's over by Mike, over in Pitkin area. So I'm not quite sure how they're going to validate the geology for your evergreen sequestration hub. Here's a few of the ones for Allen Parish. I know we got some Allen Parish folks here. They've got about 12 different wells, 3 different sites within their parish. Here's Rapides. You'll notice something, right? This is something I wanted to bring up too. Don't let me forget about my clicker. I do it all the time. So you see that big black box. That's what these companies are doing. And so what I did is I pulled the first 10 pages of a 474-page document, which is the base document for this evergreen sequestration hub down here in Beauregard Township, right? And you see these black things? These are redactions. These are what the companies aren't wanting you to see. And when you look right here, that's supposed to be the waste stream that says this is what's actually going to be in there. But they're not telling us. Got a phone call from DNR on Friday on my way home from work. And I talked to them about the redactions. And they said, well, now that we're out from under the thumb of EPA, we can go ahead and start addressing them. Folks, the state of Louisiana was issued primacy by the EPA to do this stuff in February of 2024. Right? They've had this stuff in their hands for over a year and a half, and we're still seeing nothing but redactions. They could have fixed this long ago.
And they call it public purpose.
And they call it public purpose, and the reason they're saying that they can do this right now, because the EPA also said it, is business confidentiality. I don't know, when you look at the evergreen sequestration hub, I didn't print it because I didn't have enough black ink, but the entire emergency response part of their application for their class 6 well was nothing but black and white paper, and I'm not talking black for words. It's all blacked out. There's nothing. I don't know what is business confidential about an emergency response plan. It makes 0 sense. Vernon Parish is where I'm at, the top left one. So you see the red dot, or the red tag right there? Go to the west about 3 to 5 miles. That's my house. I got a 10-acre farm with a bunch of cattle and hogs and everything, and I'm about 3 to 5 miles from that well right there. This one really hits home. I love Kisatchie, right? I love the national forest. I love what Kisatchie brings to the state of Louisiana. Right now, the state of Louisiana, the U.S. Forest Service falls under the United States, U.S. Department of Agriculture, excuse me. In 2023, they made a proposed rule, open comment period closed on 2 January 2024. What they proposed was conditionally exclude, not conditionally, exempt, you gotta get the right words. They are proposing to exempt carbon capture and sequestration activities from their perpetual land use rule. What that means is they have a rule right now that says you cannot use the U.S. Forest Service lands for something forever. What this is doing, carbon capture and sequestration, is they're saying they're going to put it in the ground forever, which would be a violation of their rule of perpetual land use. That final ruling has not been made yet. So in these packets right here, that you'll pick up on the way out in the very back, it's got the email, phone number, address to the Kisatchie National Forest Supervisor. It's got it to the Washington office and the regional Atlanta office in here. Write them, email, call them, send them an Instagram, whatever you want to do. But let them know we do not want this stuff in our national forest. They are there for a reason. They're there for our recreational use. A couple regulatory things real quick. The first one I don't really pay much attention to. It's called the endangerment finding. It was enacted in 2009 under the EPA. It deals a lot with vehicle emissions, right? It really led up to the mandate for you're going to have an electric vehicle. They're killing that. So I'm kind of on board. I like my big F-350 to haul my cattle and stuff, right? So that's what I like to do. Now the next one, however, that's the one I'm really watching. That's the one I'm watching. That is EPA, the comment period is open. You go to that website, GHGR reporting, greenhouse gas reporting, and the comment period is open until 3 November. It's a little bit long. It's a 28-page proposed rule, which is kind of long for an EPA ruling. But what they're proposing to do is basically make it so that the companies that provide the carbon to the sequesters don't have to report what they're emitting and what they're injecting. So if they're not going to have to track what they're emitting or capturing or burying, or why do we need to do this at all? This would help kill some of that. The other side of it, it's going to take a while, right? Because it's a proposed rule. It's going to have a lot of pushback. It's going to have a lot of information. That if you read through the proposed rule, it does talk about the IRS and the 45Q tax credits as well, and how that would be impacted. Because that's how they actually calculate their 45Q numbers to get that $85 a metric ton. This is what people ask all the time, right? What can I do now, right? I don't want to just wait till my permit comes out and then I have to comment on it because I only get 30 days. And then I got to figure out what's underneath all the black redactions and stuff, right? Number one, what I always wanted, when I've engaged with DNR already, and I asked you to do as well, and all these points of contact are in here. And inside that same booklet, there's like 5 or 6 example questions of things you can ask right now, okay? In my opinion, nothing should move from the administratively complete part to the technical review part until all unallowable redactions are removed, number one. Move the public hearings to the front end. Right now, when you have a public hearing, there's one public hearing during that 30-day comment period. Can anybody tell me when it happens? 1 day before the public comment period closes. 1 day. Demand that they move it to the front end. Put it in that first week or two so it sparks interest and gets people talking. Socioeconomic data. When you read through there's a section called IT. It's basically an evaluation comparing socioeconomic benefits to environmental and health and human risks, right? Make them show your data, because right now all they're doing is saying, well, people are going to make more money than it's going to risk the environment. I don't believe that at all. Contact EPA Region 6 if you see anything wrong. So the state has primacy, but in their issuance of primacy to the state of Louisiana, EPA still retains the authority to come in and say, hey, you're doing something wrong, let me take a look. Right? So they still have oversight, if you will, of those programs. Folks, I just wanted to get up here real quick and say all that stuff. Once again, take a look in here at the very end, all the points of contact, be engaged, stay alert. If you have questions, ask. I'll stick around and we'll have a question and answer session at the end. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Our next speaker is Mr. Johnny Talbert. He's from DeQuincy, Louisiana, out of Calcasieu Parish. He's a landowner, a former retired businessman, and retired vocational instructor.
Okay, I'm not a speaker, so I had to bring my notes. The Evergreen Sequestration Hub, you had heard John mention that. In September of 2023, Trace Carbon Solutions out of Houston, Texas, and Mopus Woodlands Group formed an agreement to permanently store 250 million metric tons of CO2 underground west of DeQuincy. A little bit about Trace. Trace Carbon Solutions was formed in 2022. A little bit about the hub. The initial project phase is for 2 Class 2 CO2 storage wells. Permits have been applied for February of 2023. 7 months before they announced their agreement. Trace claims there are no residences in the 20,000 acre pool. The Beauregard GIS map shows multiple landowners in and around the area. Well number 2, which is known as Loblolly number 2, is about a quarter of a mile east of Green Island Road. I drove up Green Island Road. There's a lot of houses up Green Island Road. The wells will be known as Loblolly number 1. It's located north of Highway 12, west of the Honore Road, along Hog Pen Gully. Well number 1, if you go on the satellite map, you'll see that it's already cleared out. The location's already cleared out. Loblolly number 2, which is the one over next to Green Island Road, is north of Highway 12, east of Green Island Road, and east of the Bearhead Creek. Anybody here from that area? Then nobody knows what happens when Bearhead Creek gets on a horse. It goes underwater. They plan to inject some 5,000 feet below the underground in a porous sandstone saline aquifer covering 32 sections of land at 640 acres a section. That's a 6 mile by 5.5 mile square. Any of your police jury people, your legislators, your representatives, like these guys have been preaching, give them a call. Don't be scared to call them. All they're going to tell you is no or yes, one of the two. And they're not going to make a decision unless they're pressured into it.
Thank you, Johnny. Okay, next. Okay, our next speaker is Miss Renee Savant. She's from Ragley, Louisiana, Beauregard Parish. She's a founding member of the Louisiana CO2 Alliance and editor of the CO2 Chronicles. Served under 3 governors on the LEDAC board in Baton Rouge. She now fights CCS full-time. Welcome, Renee.
Thank you. Mona, you throw a good party. How many folks that are still in the room are Beauregard Parish residents? Okay, I got a little news for you. And this comes from the horse's mouth. This comes from the chairman of the Department of Energy and Natural Resources in Baton Rouge, Mr. Brett Guyton. Beauregard Parish is going to be ground zero for CCS. We're going to have more projects than Allen, Rapids, all the other parishes, but yet we're kind of getting to the table at last, okay? Everybody's heard about the Senate Bill 353, which, gave the legislators what they thought was the right, which say Louisiana's going to prove that they don't have that right. But this last legislative session, there was this little thing called Senate Bill 244. Senate Bill 244 is Senate Bill 353 on steroids. The man that wrote it, he admitted it took him 18 months to write the bill. Tyler Gray. He is the one that worked with Denbury to get Senate Bill 353 put in place. We were in Baton Rouge and they told us that they were going to hear all of our bills. We get road bills, safety bills, so it wouldn't be 500 feet from our schools. We have a right to vote. We had all of these bills that we spent months helping write. And they told us that all of our bills were going to get heard in one day. 20-something bills in one day. Now, we knew that couldn't happen, but what they were doing, they were trying to discourage us. So we were looking at all the bills and tracking all the bills, and while we're here on the House side, on the Senate side, they snuck in what is now 244. They had another number. And it was 62 pages. Now, they said they didn't understand Senate Bill 353, and 353 was 9 pages. So when they went to put Senate Bill 244 in place, it was 62 pages. They voted through it on committee. Within that next week, it went to the Senate floor, and that 62-page bill went to 272 pages. Committee never saw from 62 to 272, and I sat in a meeting right next to Tyler Gray. And I said, how could you legally do that? How could you just add all these other pages? Well, what they did, and who was at the last meeting that was held here? Okay? There was a little gentleman that sat up there. His name was Dustin Davidson, and every time his mouth moved, he lied. Y'all asked how many projects, and he told y'all 2. There's 6 right now underway in Beauregard Parish, CCS, not sequestration, but 6 projects are going on right now in Beauregard, but we've got more coming fast. And like I said, we were told that we had, that Beauregard Parish is going to be ground zero. Now, when the chairman of Natural Resources, that is the representative for our parish, says we're going to be ground zero, you can bet we're going to be ground zero. So this room should have been packed tonight. There should have been people lined up against this wall. You need to tell your neighbors. You need to tell your friends. You need to tell everyone you know in Beauregard Parish what's going on, because it's here. And none of these legislators they're not standing up for us. Brett Diamond had an eminent domain bill, 601, that he brought to the floor 5 times and pulled it back. We left Baton Rouge without an eminent domain bill, but they put an amendment in Senate Bill 244, and that's why none of us fought it, because we thought with the amendment he put in Senate Bill 244, we were told that it would give us eminent domain. That was a lie. That amendment does not give us eminent domain. So, if you've ever gotten involved in something, I come back out, I left and come back to the country just to grow a garden and raise chickens, and here I am, and I feel like I'm in a fight for my life, but I'm in a fight for my grandchildren's life. That's what I'm fighting for. It's not for my life, There's a lot. If you go to CO2 Chronicles on Senate Bill 244, I got 2 parts up. I said I'm going to do 3. I don't think I can cover it in 3, because when you add all the references, it's 1,200 pages. That's what Senate Bill 244. Our legislators do not understand what they voted on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Renee. Okay, at this time, we're going to hear from Mr. Gary Musgrove. He's from Forest Hill, Rapides Parish. He's retired Air Force. He's a nursery owner of Cassacha Hills Nursery. He calls himself Joe Citizen, who puts lots of time into the document Buried in Lies. You can view that document on the back page. Welcome, Mr. Musgrove.
Thank you everyone. We're getting close to wrapping up tonight. But I want you to know, 2 months ago I sat right where you are. I was Joe Citizen. I was you sitting, listening to these guys talk. But it wasn't this panel that was talking. It was the LSU cheerleaders. The ones that came up to Beauregard, sat here and talked to y'all how great CCS was. All right, that panel is who I was listening to. But before I went to that meeting, I did a little research of my own. And I realized that what they passed in 2020, and again, I'm one of the ones that's, like the Colonel was saying, when they come for my guns, I'll fight then. Well, he's right. The wolf is at the door. The wolf was on the front porch the whole time. It started in 2020. I did not realize it. Shame on me. Okay, shame on all of us, because we're all the same. We send our politicians trusting that they're going to do the right thing. We elect our police juries, hoping that these parish police jurymen are going to protect us and do the right thing. Well, guess what, folks? When you throw a dollar bill, when you throw millions of dollar bills, they forget where they come from, and they forget who they serve. So, 2 months ago, I jumped feet first over my head into CCS. So I am here with a call of action tonight. What you need to leave with here tonight, I'm going to give you three things. First, all right, this is our land. This is our water. This is for our future. This is why I'm doing it. I'm a grandfather of 7 children. 6. One will be on the way this week. And I'm doing it from them. I had so much anxiety when I figured out what they're about to do. The fourth thing, this map. I want you to burn this map into your mind. This section here in the orange, brownish, light brown, tan section. This is our Chico Aquifer. Ladies and gentlemen, the governor has just approved the first sequestration well in Hackberry. Hackberry. They just approved the first one. You know what that means? They're going to start pumping CO2 in the ground. In this section right here, you've heard General Honore give you a call to action. You heard Mr. Blanc tell you the dangers with CCS. Carbon dioxide, when it mixes with water, we all know this. I know you guys are researching this. You get carbonic acid. Your pH drops. It becomes acidic. You can't use this water. Forget growing thing. How many rice farmers we got? Crawfish farmers. This is where we're getting our water from. You destroy this aquifer, you destroy our way of life. So what I want you to look at this map. Do you know how many permits are pending right now for this Chico aquifer? 103. Each well, minimum, is 20,000 acres. Plume. Minimum, 20,000 acres. Max, up to 40,000 acres. 40,000 acres, that's 62 square miles. That's roughly 9.7 miles block in each plume. 103. That's just the beginning. The governor has committed 40% of the nation's carbon dioxide to be sequestered, to be stored under Louisiana's aquifer, the Chico aquifer. 40%. You know how many wells that calculates to? 400 wells across Louisiana. Livingston Parish is in a fight for their life. Lake Marpaw, 8 injection wells. So our call to action for you tonight, the wolf is at the door. 2 months ago, I was where you were at. 2 months from now, I hope you're standing where I'm at. We need volunteers. We need men and women who will stand up in the challenge that we have. To get the word out, to get the message out. Because I promise you, for every one person that doesn't know about CCS, there's 20 behind them. We, this table, can't do it by ourselves. We can't fund this lawsuit by ourselves. Guys, we are citizens. We are private citizens. Like I said, I'm your neighbor up the road in Forest Hill. I depend on this aquifer. You farmers depend on this aquifer. We're in it together. So you can either fight it with us or you can fight it alone. Because they're coming. They're going to bring you a contract. Sign on the dotted line. If you don't, oh well, we'll just take you to court and we're going to take your land. What House Bill 344, Act 61 has done is taken your property from you. You no longer own it. If a private company, foreign or domestic, wants it for CCS, it's theirs. And our legislators did it. There's nothing you can do about it on your own. But together we can. Guys, we need money. this lawsuit we're filing, we need $100,000 to file this lawsuit, and we're doing it for you, for me, for my kids, your grandkids, and your grandkids, grandkids. If we don't do it now, we're going to lose our aquifer. Because why? I asked personally, face to face with Greg Upton, and these cheerleaders that set up here in Pineville, like they did here. Can you guarantee it's not going to hurt our aquifer? The answer was no. So is really the risk worth the benefits? What's going to happen? Is there any police jurymen in here? Police jury. Here's what they're going to do. They're going to come, industry's going to come, if they haven't already, they're going to come, they're going to promise you $1 billion plant, $1 billion company, $1 billion industry. They're going to say, we're going to bring in all these jobs. Well, I hope you do your research with them, because the state is going to issue tax abatements for up to 5 to 10 years. The products are going to be offshore to European markets. They're non-taxable. And you're talking about what? A handful of full-time jobs? Is it worth the risk?
No.
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 We have plenty of industry in this country. Not to usurp ourselves to big oil and gas to come in here and take our land, take our rights from us. Sheriff's in here? You got a sheriff? Your sheriff should be the #1 protector here. He took an oath to the Constitution to protect your constitutional right, not to come and force you to hand your land over to a private company. If your sheriff is unwilling to stand for you, replace him. If your legislators are unwilling to stand for you, replace them. Police jurymen, if they're unwilling to stand for you, replace them. We are the people. We decide our property rights. Not big oil and gas. Not foreign industry. No one.
And not the legislature.
And definitely not the legislators. So, on this back table, you will see some ladies back there. They have information. You'll see a pamphlet, Buried in Lies. If you want to know everything you want to know about carbon capture without digging through the internet, go sign up. We'll email it to you. If you want to get involved, please sign up. We're going to be spreading this information across the state. We need other speakers. All right? You have skills. You have abilities that we don't have. I grow plants. I'm retired Air Force. The last thing I thought my career would be ended up doing is, what is this called?
Freedom.
Freedom. Fighting for freedom here in our backyard. So, go to the table, please. Find out how you can get involved. We're fundraising. We're selling raffle tickets back there and T-shirts. But that's not going to do it. We need $100,000 now. You know, we got a lawsuit about to drop this week. That was $30,000 and more. Okay, we don't have backers. We don't have big financiers. This is literally grassroots. So anything you can help us with. $20, $100, $500, $1,000, whatever you think it's worth. We need it. We need you. We need your expertise.
Is the information to write the check in that pamphlet?
Yes, it's at St. My Louisiana is our legal arm, and that's our fundraising arm. So, St. My Louisiana, you can go to the back table and it'll be back there. So again, thank you very much. You have any questions? I think that's what we're going to next. need help. We need media personnel to help us get that word out. Yep. So, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you, Gary. I know it's getting late, you know, it feels like overload, but we have a couple of more things I want to address. I want to thank, there's two police jurymen that came from Jeff Davis, Mr. Buller and Mr. LeBeau, Mr. Joe Perkins from Allen Parish, and we also had Mr. Roland Hollins, and Doug Hillebrandt, Jeff Meadows, and O.B. Morgan have showed up. And so you're going to hear from Mr. Jeffrey Meadows for just a few seconds.
Well, y'all can rest a little bit. I'm not big on speeches. Well, we've heard the cries. We understand. I know that a lot of people's going to say, well, your hands are tied. They are, to an extent. Our governor and the legislative have done that to us as a people. That's the reason why we went ahead and put that resolution in, to tell them that we do not want that here in Beauregard Parish. So, and I know that it's been said that y'all don't think us jurors are thinking about that, or we haven't made meetings, but we had joined the alliance at the very beginning to help this cause. Needless to say, we never thought that it would come to this and it would last this long. But we understand where each and every one of you here. I've lived here for 50 years, and I'm not planning on moving or going anywhere. But the other thing that you know, I hadn't heard a whole lot about is if they do drill and put this in the ground, once that's done, they will never go back and drill in that area. So if there's any oil below or top or above, they will never come back and recover that. So you don't hear a whole lot about that. So you're done. I don't know what else y'all want to hear from us, but we'll be glad for any of y'all to ever come to our meetings and have a discussion. Sorry that it was only 3 of us tonight. Some of them had some other obligations to make. But we do hear y'all, and we want y'all to know that we are supporting our parish. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meadows. Okay, so we are going to, excuse me, we're going to move into question and answers. If there's anybody here with question and answer, a question you'd like to ask? Johnny? Mr. Boo Maddox is the owner of Han Roofing and the co-founder of and board member of Save My Louisiana. He's a 6th generation landowner in Rapides Parish, and he is going to help moderate the question and answers as well.
Yes, and I would like to say that I watched all of you here today, and me and Mr. Keith Guillory went this morning to one of the Rapides Parish schools in Plainview and spoke to a group of 7th graders, about 40 kids. And I can tell you that they stayed focused. And you know, there's some people I know that left here. I know this is a lot of information to give you at one time, but I just want to commend y'all as a crowd that I think y'all held better attention than any meetings that we've been to. So I appreciate your concern and your interest in it. There's a lot to learn. I'm another one that started in this about 3 or 4 months ago. I went to a meeting, their meetings, not ours. And in their meeting, their experts are economists. In these meetings, the experts are geologists. There's a big difference. One is expert in making money and boosting the economy for somebody. I don't think it's for us. We're in trying to save our state, and this is a great group. Gary spoke the first time at that meeting, and when I heard Gary speak, I went straight to him. We need your help, you know, and that's how we've picked up people. So I can tell you this is a grassroots movement. I've never been involved, and I've been involved in a lot of things, but I've never been involved with a group of people that was so humble and meek and willing to serve their state and their people. We're not being paid, we're spending our time. Some of these people down here in your area have faithfully drove to Rapides Parish consistently to these meetings and fought with us. And I think we are making a big headway, and it's because of people's involvement. So like Gary said, and I'll say it again, go to Save My Louisiana. We formed it 2 or 3 months ago, and it's growing, but we need you to share the page. We need you to get people to try to donate. You know, you could think, if we had to have $1 million, it's a lot of money. But if 10,000 people, out of the 4.6 million people that live in Louisiana, if 10,000 would give $100, we'd have all the money we need to fight this big giant that we're fighting. And we can win. I think about Gideon in the battlefield. He went up against 135,000 with 300 men. He started off with 30,000 men, and God reduced him to 300 to show his power. And I believe that that's what God's going to do in this movement. We're going to show the giant how powerful our God is. Because if God is for us, who can be against us? So I want to say that. So does anybody have any questions?
My question is it possible to have this brought to an election across the state of Louisiana for this question and the,
Well, give us 1 second. So I think we should have it brought to an election. Is it possible, and will they allow us, Colonel?
I missed the question.
Is it possible to have this brought to an election of the people?
Well, they did it in the last session. They did House Bill 4, and it never got out of committee. And they said that they're gonna bring it to session again this year, but it has to.
Yeah, so she's, go ahead, Colonel.
So I don't think it's working.
What Renee's saying is that they did bring something out of committee, or did make it out of committee?
They did House Bill number 4 by Chuck Owens, and it was to let every parish vote either up or down on whether you wanted it in your parish or not. We never got out of the Natural Resource Committee, and it's supposed to come back this year. It's supposed to be actually Mike Johnson, and so far 20 legislators said that they would sign the bill to bring it back to the people who vote. That's all that we know.
But even then, it doesn't just need to be parish-wide, it needs to be statewide. Because, and that's a big deal. And one of the things that I failed to say earlier that I wanted to bring to all of your attention is a great jewel out of Act 517, which gives all of these carbon capture companies immunity. Remember I told you about immunity? Article 13, Article 3 of the Constitution restricts the legislature from making special laws for people. It can't give an organizational special privilege or give it immunity. Well, Act 517 actually gives these companies immunity. And this is how it works. If a carbon capture company puts their carbon down in the ground and it stays in there for 10 years and nothing happens, they get to leave, and this bill gives them immunity. So that if on day number 10 plus 1, that carbon comes out, who are you going to sue? Nobody. And guess what? That property that they took away from you goes back to the state. Now it's state property, and they gave the state immunity as well. So you talk about jacking one over on you, that is a significant issue. Take away your land, immunize themselves from any kind of liability, and then you're left holding the bag. Poisoned water, worthless land, now what are you going to hand off?
What a legacy to leave our children. Think about that.
Well, I want to say something about that vote. I asked the governor 30 days ago, I said, will you let us vote? He told me no. They were in a meeting with Gary and several of them. There was the answer. The governor's not going to let us vote.
Well, the governor is not going to let us vote, but let me say this to that, is that let's say that they gave us a parish-wide vote. Each parish could opt out. What you got to understand is CO2 does not have boundaries of a parish line. That geological formation can cross to 2 or 3 parishes. It doesn't matter. So you can't have a parish vote. You need a statewide vote. And I think if they had, they know if they had it, it would be shot down. So I think it will never happen, sir.
I'd like to know whose property in Hackberry are they putting that first well in? Also, I'd like to, earlier y'all said something about Mark Abraham. What was his stance? He's for or against?
He's for CCS.
He's for CCS.
He's for, I'm gonna talk to him soon. Whose property, because we're from Couchy Parish. We have a news media there that puts it out, and I'd like to
let me mention to you this in Calhoun Parish. We have permission at one of the churches in Gillis to have a meeting, and we are going to be scheduling that. We were kind of slow on advertising this meeting, and I think we could have had a way better crowd had we advertised it sooner. So I'd like y'all to watch Save My Louisiana for the upcoming meeting in Gillis, which won't be really out of your way, and we want to draw bigger crowds. And we're going to try to shorten our message, but it's a lot of information that you need to know for people that hasn't heard anything. So go ahead, ma'am, with your question.
It's a two-part question. The first part is, are these CCS projects, are these being funded, are they coming from the New Green Deal?
Yeah. We can all answer that.
Okay, the question is, the answer is yes?
Yes.
Is that correct? Well, my second question then is, 5 years of cash. On day 2 of the Schumer shutdown, Trump and his administration nixed $26 billion and funding. $2.4 billion was in the New Green Deal funding. Is any of that in these projects? No. Okay. I have a third part question. Is there any way we can get the nixing in these projects?
So what you need to do is push your congressional folks.
Pardon?
Your congressional folks your representatives at Congress, they need to repeal 45Q.
Yeah, explain 45Q.
45Q is the tax subsidy that these companies are getting, and it varies. So the long story short, it's not a Democrat-Republican thing, first of all, right? It's a lawmaker, money-making thing, because it was put in place right at the end of the Bush administration. Obama carried it, Trump carried it, Biden okayed it and upped it. We have a supermajority Republican Congress and a Republican president, and they upped most of it again, and they held on to it. So this is not Democrat. So we need to repeal 45Q. Right now, for most of us, it ranges from $85 to $120 a metric ton based on EOR or just carbon capture and sequestration. To answer the gentleman's question on the back real quick on who owns the land, the land is owned by the LNG company itself. The owner of the well is Hackberry Solutions. And real quick on the jobs that they promised, this is straight from their permit, I swear to goodness, folks. It said that they were going to have 317 jobs during construction. Of those 317 jobs, 15% would go to local people. The 75% would go to commuters, probably coming in from Texas, and then 10% would temporarily relocate, which are high-end, paying, overfluted, professional engineer type people, right? So that's that. They said in the same permit, once it's constructed, that facility would own one permanent job. One. So.
The lawsuit that you spoke of filing, will that lawsuit sue each individual legislator personally?
It cannot. No.
Well, if they're violating the Constitution, why can't you?
No, sir, because they acted as a body. So the lawsuit is against the state. So the lawsuit will be Save My Louisiana and some individuals as the plaintiffs against the defendant of the state of Louisiana, the director of LDNR, the conservation, and then the governor himself, in their capacity as the commissioner and the governor. Because this is a constitutional ground lawsuit. This is not the only lawsuit, by the way. So we've got several lined out. The first one is the constitutional lawsuit on the grounds that all of these acts are unconstitutional. They violate our rights per the Constitution. The next lawsuits that we're going to be involved in will be environmental lawsuits. For example, you keep talking about the Chico Aquifer. There are things called environmental impact studies that were required to be done before you can start doing it. None of those were complied with correctly. So we're going to sue the state for that as well. We are suing the entity of the state and subdivisions of the state in order to stop these things happening. And there are multiple. So far, we have 7 lined up suits that we intend to file soon in all these different ways. One of them will be a federal suit because of the Kissassian National Forest. There's been no environmental impact study. You can't put a toilet in a national forest without a 2 or 3 year environmental impact study. So no, it cannot be individually against the members of the legislature. That is your responsibility, it's our responsibility not to sue them, but to replace them at the ballot box.
And environmental would also include EPA because they have this their rule that says you can't do anything that could ever possibly contaminate a sole source aquifer. And they're not,
yes.
DNR is not following that.
That's correct. And the word is may, so they use the word may. Anything that may contaminate requires and can't be done, and so on and so forth. Absolutely. We're covering down on all those particular issues.
And
yes.
the other question I got, would it be cheaper just to replace or recall Rhino Governor Landry?
No. I don't know if it'll be cheaper or not. That's somebody else's game to play. My particular place on this field is to deal with the legal issue, and that is not cheap at all. There is no possible way in this universe where you can take legal action cheaply. And the reason why is because this is not a game where we get to make our claim against the state and then someone says, oh, well, we'll just sit and we'll read all this stuff and we'll make a decision. No, those guys over there are going to make their claim against us, and then we're going to have to claim back, and you get this volley of fire across back and forth till eventually it settles out enough and a judge makes a decision. And that takes time, and time with lawyers is what?
Money.
A lot of money. A lot of money. And we've got to pay experts, and we've got lots of things to do. So it's expensive. I know you. I never in my life ever thought I'd be asking people for money, especially in a political situation. I can promise you. I despise people asking me for money, and here I am saying, we've got to have money. It's not going in our pockets, I can assure you. If you don't want to see how we're spending our money, you're welcome to come look at it. We're not hiding from anybody. But this month, we require the money to do it. I know that we blow $20 a day pretty quick, and some of us even $100 in a couple of days. So if you care about your land, you care about your water and your future, $100 is nothing. And just as Maddox said, you get 10,000 people giving $100, we've got what we need. And guess what? How do they take us seriously? Meaning the people we're opposed to? They take us seriously when they look over our shoulder and see how much money we've got, because that means that's the length of time we can keep this thing going in order to get to a resolution that we prefer.
But it's just something really bad wrong when ExxonMobil is going to threaten to sue that each Allen Parish police bureau personally to bankrupt them. But then we don't have a way to sue the legislature for not following EPA regulations or DNR. We do very much appreciate every member on this panel to help educate us. And I really enjoy everybody in the audience they're right behind you because they're here to hear what you have to say. So hopefully we'll have enough knowledge and interest to become like the gentleman from Forest Hill and the rest of you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Jones, I'd like to explain something to y'all. I own Honore roofing, and I work in Louisiana, but I also work Iowa in the Midwest. I've been doing it for 37 years. What really got me sparked is that being I was in Iowa when I found out about this, I started researching. This ain't a fight in Louisiana. This is a national fight.
It is.
And it's a global fight, but what I've discovered is that the Midwest, which has over 2,000 carbon-producing industries, a lot of ethanol plants, they have drawn out maps of pipelines coming from the Midwest straight here. And the reason I learned why they're doing this, they're doing it
because Louisiana has a geological formation in order to store 40% of the lower 48 CO2. So they have a plan. That's why they stole our pore space. That's why they're planning on putting 100 wells in. It's because they have give your pore space away in exchange for receiving all these carbon credits. We're going to take the nation's CO2 and we're going to make somebody rich off of carbon credits, and it ain't going to be us. And they're going to do it by stealing our pore space. And either we're going to sit back as people and let them do it, or we're going to all come together, we're all going to stick some money in the dadgum pot, and we're going to show them that we own Louisiana, not them.
Amen.
That's what you got to do.
Amen. Are there any other questions?
Yes, ma'am. So I was here at the last meeting, so when Brett Guyton sat up there and said that there's no well or anything that is supposed to go here, that was a lie. Is that correct?
Where'd Renee go? Renee.
What I will say is there are currently 2 proposed Class 6 wells. They both are owned by the same company. It's Evergreen Sequestration Hub. But both are in the permitting process. It's been under technical review since 10 October of 2024. So if that's what was said at the last meeting, that application was with DNR since October of 2024, yes, sir.
Yes, well, that was this year. So if they had the application since 2024, that means they knew there would be a well here. So I would consider them knowing and telling us it's not to be truthful.
Amen.
Look, I live less than a mile from that place there on the corner of Gaytime and Creedy Jackson Road, so it's just right down the road for me. There's a lot that they told us at that first meeting that was just a lie.
You're correct, sir.
So,
Yes.
is there anybody that, Colonel, I appreciate the lesson on the Constitution of Louisiana. Is there anybody that we can get to help do legwork as far as something like these being civil rights violations? Or and I don't like that term, but when the ACLU finds out that they're taking people's property under this pretense, they won't touch it.
No, so none of those laws will apply to this. Those are all about discrimination, and so far there is no kind of civil right issue in terms of discrimination that this involves. So that would, I like the idea, but it's not an avenue that we can go down. We have a much better avenue. The Constitution of Louisiana, the Constitution of the United States, Amendment 5 and 14, those are the much better avenues that we have, because that covers everything. We don't have to prove through, you're talking about Title 9, I forget the title, but you're talking about the Civil Rights Code. We have to prove that someone is doing this to us because we are Christian vice, Muslim vice black versus white versus all these kind of things. They're not doing that. They're indiscriminately taking away our land. They're not discriminating against any of us in here based on our race, creed, or color. They don't care. They just want our land. And as Matt showed you, they're going to take that land and they're going to make it a dump. And when it's no longer any good, it's no good for us. We can't drink the water. We can't live here. We can't sustain ourselves with our jobs. And our land is worthless, and so they'll be happy to take it for pennies on the dollar at that point, or if they pay you at all.
You know, he also said, from what I understood what you said, that they've given them immunity.
Absolutely, yes.
So what's the $35 million that they said they were going to leave after they got done with the project? They were going to leave $35 million with the Department of Natural Resources in case any lawsuits come up.
Who cares? I don't care if they have $35 billion. If I can't drink my water and I can't live on my land, it doesn't matter. There's no economic development if I lose my place to live. I'm at the edge of the river. We're at the edge of the canyon. There's nothing else beyond here.
Well, I might have a few years on you, but I don't know if people realize, if you take that $35 million that they lied about then and divide it by half of the population in the state of Louisiana, it works out to about $15.50.
They know that.
So I think my grandkids, now my family probably wouldn't give me 50 cents for me,
my grandkids are worth way more than that. And so